My name is Royce Yater. I am the Midwest Director of the National Trust for Historic Preservation and a longtime Minnesotan before I took that position 10 years ago at the Trust Regional Office in Chicago. I'd like to begin by recognizing a number of the elected and other officials in our midst who have come to show their support for partners in preservation. I'd like to recognize Mayor Chris Coleman, who will be speaking in a few moments. Mayor Rybeck, who is delayed slightly, but will be along hopefully in a few minutes. We have Mendota Heights Mayor Sandra Krebsbach, Representative Carol McFarland, Superintendent of Parks Jane Miller, Commissioner Victoria Reinhardt, Maplewood Mayor Will Rosbach, and Senator Chuck Uygur. I'd also like to begin by recognizing our host for the day, who is going to welcome us to this space. Greg Heineman is the chairman of the board of the James J. Hill Reference Library and the steward of this handsome and very historic space.
Thanks, Royce. Thanks to all of you for coming to St. Paul. Mayor Coleman, good to see you. We're absolutely thrilled to have you with us. So I think it's a fitting location. This building is going on 100 years old. It was begun in 1921. It still does serve as an operating business reference library. We also host events here, and if you have any interest in doing that, I was told by Beth O'Connor, who runs all of our events, be sure to pump the fact that we are available. So there's the shameless ask. We are deeply appreciative of your thinking of this library, and our mission is to not only drive what we refer to as the democratization of information, which our founder, Jim Hill, came up with just before he had died in terms of leaving this building as a legacy. But we're also very engaged in the important role of stewarding entrepreneurship. And at this time, in this economy, entrepreneurship is more important than ever. It's what made our founder successful. We believe it's going to be absolutely critical as we shift this economy into a positive direction. So, like you, we honor the past, and we're thrilled about the future, and we're deeply appreciative of you hosting this event at the James J. Hill Library. I hope you have a great event here, and thanks again.
I'd also like to introduce to you our key partner in this program, the Minnesota Historical Society, and its director and chief executive officer, Stephen Elliott. Stephen?
Thank you. It's a pleasure for the Minnesota Historical Society to be here and to applaud this initiative. Partners in Preservation provides an unparalleled opportunity to focus on the importance of historic places in Minnesota's heritage. Historic properties are among our state's most valuable resources. They add richness and variety to our landscape, provide ties to our collective past through the built legacy of those who came before us, and strengthen community identity by providing a distinctive sense of place. Historic preservation also provides many tangible benefits. It revitalizes communities, stimulates heritage tourism, provides affordable housing, and creates new jobs. The value of Partners in Preservation reaches beyond the financial assistance it provides. The opportunity this program provides to bring visibility to the importance of our built environment and to inspire interest and engage the public sets it apart from other grant programs. After months of planning and preparation, it's exciting finally to go public. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce the person who probably is key to this program, because we would probably not be here without his help and support. And that's Tim McClyman, who's the president of American Express Foundation and vice president for philanthropy at the American Express Company. In this role, he directs all of the company's global philanthropy. Tim?
Good morning and welcome. It's great to see so many people here this morning. Stephanie and I were here at 5 a.m. this morning doing an interview, so we got to see the place when it was quiet, which was really great. But we're hoping it's not going to be quiet today because we have a lot to share with you and a lot to celebrate with you. So I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for joining me today to kick off the Partners in Preservation program here in the Twin Cities. I'm personally very excited to be here because I grew up on the Mississippi River in Iowa and went to graduate school up in St. Cloud. So I'm familiar with this area, and I really appreciate the beauty and the community spirit here. So congratulations to you all. It seems fitting to be launching Partners in Preservation here at the James J. Hill Reference Library. James Hill continues to have a tremendous impact here in the Twin Cities. And this building is a really great example of the historic architecture that's found in this area. Giving back to the communities where our employees live and work, and should add our customers as well, is something that's been a priority for American Express since we were founded more than 160 years ago. And historic preservation has long been one of our philanthropic priorities. Through our partnerships with the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the World Monuments Fund and lots of other organizations, we've been able to support historic landmarks that are both iconic to the world and loved by hometowns and neighborhoods. In 2006, we announced the creation of the Partners in Preservation program, and our partnership with the National Trust was born out of a mutual desire to raise public awareness for historic preservation in communities. We believe that if we could get people involved and learn more about their community landmarks, that it would have a ripple effect for years to come in terms of visitors to these historic sites, potential donors and members, an economic impact in the communities, and a revitalized sense of pride in a region's historic significance. And we felt that the best way to achieve this goal was to get the community involved, to get people up out of their seats, if you will, and really engaged in their communities. So we created this program to ask community members to help us distribute $1 million worth of historic preservation grants. Since 2006, we've helped restore more than 100 historic sites through this program, and we've donated over $5 million to restoration projects. We recently recommitted to our partnership with the National Trust and have committed $10 million over 5 years for preservation efforts, $1 million of which will be distributed to historic sites here in the Twin Cities. Shortly, thank you. Shortly, we'll be revealing the 25 historic places in the 7-county area of the Twin Cities that have been selected to participate in the Partners in Preservation program. Many of these sites are well known, but some of them aren't. Some of them are what we call hidden gems, and we like it that way. We like having a mixture of well-known, iconic landmarks as well as hidden gems. And I think the common thread, or the common theme, is that they all represent an important thread in the fabric that you know as the Twin Cities. So I wanted to give you a brief overview of how the program is going to work. Those of you that are from sites already know this, but some other people may need some additional information. So starting today, actually at 10 a.m. Today, you can go to facebook.com to the Partners in Preservation site, like it in order to register, and then you can vote once a day, every day, until October 12th for your favorite historic site. And we would encourage you that when you're on the Facebook page, don't just look at your site or a site that you know well. Take some time to review all of the 25 sites and all of their terrific restoration projects. We don't have time today to talk about all the projects, but they're really great projects, and we would really encourage you to explore the site and perhaps vote for some sites that you don't know as well as some that you do. So voting will close on October 12th. And then on October 13th, we will announce the historic site that received the most popular votes, and that site will be receiving its full grant request. For the remainder of the $1 million, we've enlisted the help of a special advisory committee comprised of influential members of the Twin Cities community and preservationists who will help us determine which of the other participating sites will receive funding. I know several of the advisory committee members are here today in the audience, and I'd like to thank them publicly for their participation. So any advisory committee members, please stand and let us acknowledge you. All right. Terrific. So here are your decision makers. Okay, I'd also like to especially thank the Mayor of Minneapolis, R.T. Rybeck, and the Mayor of St. Paul, Chris Coleman, both of whom are here with us today, or Mayor of Minneapolis will be here soon. They've both been critical to helping us bring Partners in Preservation to the Twin Cities. Not only are they serving as co-chairs of the advisory committee, but they have both declared today Preservation Day in their respective cities. And they are starring in a PSA for Partners in Preservation that's going to be airing shortly. So before I close, I just want to take a moment to thank some of the other partners that we have that have made this program become a reality here in the Twin Cities, including Delta Airlines. I don't know if there's anyone from Delta here, but Delta is supplying some free airline tickets that you can register to like a raffle online when you sign up on Facebook. So I encourage you to do that. Valspar Paint, which is donating paint to all 25 sites, some representatives from Valspar, so thank you for that. And also, of course, the Minnesota Historical Society, the City of Minneapolis, and the City of St. Paul. So with that, I'm going to be handing over the podium to someone whose vision and passion for historic preservation has been integral to bringing Partners in Preservation Twin Cities to life, the President of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Stephanie Meeks.
Thanks, Tim, for that very nice introduction. And I just want to thank you and recognize Tim's leadership. This Partners in Preservation program, which has been around for 5 years, was very much Tim's brainchild, and he's done so much to bring it to life over the course of its life. My welcome also, Mayor Coleman, and to Steve and all of you for joining us, and thanks to the members of the advisory committee who have helped us get here today. In addition to those who have already been introduced, I wanted to take a moment to welcome a few of the National Trust partners who are here today, including Steve Elliott from the Minnesota Historical Society. He, Lori Sutton, his Chief Marketing Officer, and Brita Bloomberg, the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, have really played a very critical role in getting us organized and supporting the Partners in Preservation program in these early months. We're also fortunate to have the Historical Society's Director Emerita, Nina Archibald, serving on the Partners in Preservation Advisory Committee. And I'd also like to recognize Bonnie McDonald, who's the Executive Director of the Preservation Alliance of Minnesota. She's here with several members of her team, and they've been terrific. Bonnie's also serving on the advisory committee. You may have seen that from a few minutes ago. We also have with us today Carol Carey from Historic St. Paul. Is Carol here? And we're grateful to have Charlene Royce from the Partners in Preservation Advisory Committee serving as an advisor emerita to the Trust, as well as Will Stark and Roger Brooks, who are current advisors to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Welcome. We're glad you're here. And finally, I want to thank everyone else who's remaining in the audience who hasn't been recognized, the 25 sites who are here with us today. We know that you've put a great deal of work into putting your projects together, to planning your open houses, into thinking up very creative ways to mobilize your constituencies throughout the voting period. And so we're grateful to you. This program wouldn't be possible without the work that you all are doing. Today really is a very exciting day for anyone who cares about preservation and for the protection of our nation's historic places. For those of you who aren't familiar with the National Trust, we were chartered 60 years ago to be stewards of the nation's most significant places. We provide leadership, education, advocacy, and sometimes even financial resources to help partners protect the cultural heritage that defines us all as Americans. One of the things that we've learned through the years is that partnership is just absolutely essential to the success of any preservation project. And today we're celebrating one of the best preservation partnerships ever, and that's the Partners in Preservation program. As Tim noted, in the first 5 years, Partners in Preservation provided $5 million in support that helped more than 100 sites in 5 cities. The American Express company's commitment to preservation is really remarkable. As Tim mentioned, what sets this program apart is not just the support provided by the American Express Foundation, but by the way the program engages local communities and people in communities to demonstrate their support for the landmarks and the hidden jewels that mean so much to them in their everyday lives. We've seen some really remarkable campaigns over the last 5 years, a lot of very good-natured competition between preservation organizations. And that's reflected in the fact that the Partners in Preservation website has had more than 7 million page views over the life of this program. And I just think that's especially important because we all know for preservation to succeed today, but especially to succeed into the future, we need more people engaged in our cause, and Partners in Preservation is a terrific vehicle for doing that. We're very much looking forward to building on the success of the last 5 years over the next 5 years of this program. And thanks to American Express for their $10 million commitment to continue this program over the next 5 years, starting with the $1 million in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and the 7 surrounding communities. As you might imagine, it was very difficult to come up with a list of 25 places to form the focus of this particular campaign. And I wanted to just say a few words about the criteria that we used to make our selection process. We looked principally for bricks and mortar projects with the potential to make long-term improvements in the sustainability of these places. The projects needed to have a budget between $50,000 and $125,000, and they needed to be shovel-ready, in a sense, ready to start their work early in 2012. All the properties had to be historically significant, open to the public, operated by a strong organization, and they had to have community support. The projects that were applied for funding also had to be part of a larger sustainable preservation plan for the site. And finally, we made every effort to make sure that the slate of projects represented the diversity of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area in all of its dimensions, including cultural, ethnic, geographic, architectural, and historic. And I hope that you'll agree when you see the sites that we have accomplished that objective. The Trust is really grateful to be working with American Express and all of you on this terrific project. And it's my pleasure now, without further ado, to announce the first 13 of the Partners in Preservation sites in Minneapolis-St. Paul, beginning with the American-Swedish Institute, the Banfield Lock Center for the Arts, the Basilica of St. Mary, Chaska Athletic Park, Christ Lutheran Church on Capitol Hill, CSPS Sokol Hall, Emerge Career and Technology Center in the Old North Branch Library. Episcopal Church of the Transfiguration. Fitzgerald Theater. Fort Snelling Upper Post Building 67. Harriet Tubman Center East. Hennepin Center for the Performing Arts. Historic Pilot Knob. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim for the next 12 sites.
Great, thanks. Okay, number 13, is it? James J. Hill House. All right. The Landmark Center. Mill Ruins Park. Minnehaha Park. Minnesota State Fair Grandstand. Okay. Minnesota Transportation Museum. Pilgrim Baptist Church. Okay. All right. Pioneers and Soldier Cemetery. The Soap Factory. All right. Washington County Historic Courthouse. Waterford Iron Bridge. And last but not least, Wayzata Depot. Okay, did I miss anyone? Okay, as you can see, our list of sites represents a diverse mix of all the rich history that is representative of this area. As I mentioned before, we're extremely fortunate to have the support of our local community leaders, and especially the mayors of St. Paul and Minneapolis, who have kindly given their time to serve as co-chairs of the advisory committee and have joined us here today, or at least one. So I'm pleased to introduce you to the mayor of St. Paul, Honorable Chris Coleman.
I'm sure that if the mayor doesn't arrive in the next 5 minutes, Megan would be more than happy to come up. The First Lady of Minneapolis is here, but you can't advocate for your own project, Megan. You have to be neutral on this thing. I'm really happy. What an exciting day. I love these things coming down. Although even at a historic preservation event, I did learn something new. I didn't know Swedes could be that expressive. So, wow, it's just shocking. I'm still not voting for you. You're on the wrong side. No. This is such a great thing. First of all, the 25 different sites that we honor here today just via nomination, regardless of who receives the most votes at the end. This is an incredible recognition of how important all of these sites are to us in this community in St. Paul, Minneapolis, throughout this region. They represent a lot of different aspects of our heritage, of our culture, a lot of different stories attached to each one of these sites. A lot of us have personal stories, whether you've been going to Pilgrim for many years, or as I did, took gymnastics at Sokol at CSPS Hall years ago. You'd be surprised to know that being 6'3" is not really the ideal body type to be a gymnast. So I took up hockey. I don't know why that happened, but I used to bartend at Landmark Center. I've had lots of opportunities to be at events here, going sites throughout this. So it's kind of fun to see this, but it's also kind of interesting for us to remind ourselves of the job that we have done in historic preservation, and it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't always worked as well as it should, but when we have done it particularly well. Rybeck, this is your seat over here. Come on, come on, come on. Mayor Rybeck, everyone, come on. It's actually usually the opposite way. If there's an event in St. Paul, Mayor Rybeck is always there first, and I'm there as late, and so this is actually inconsistent, because if I'm in Minneapolis, I'm there first and he's late. We're very, very busy people. This is just, there's so many wonderful things, and you need not look any further than the floor here or across the park to understand why preservation matters. It matters because when we recognize our history, when we preserve those pieces of our past, we help drive the future. We help drive economic development. We help create jobs. If you hadn't gone back to the historic battle over the preservation of Landmark Center and Betty Musser and all of those that were part of that debate, I will guarantee you we would not have a building to stand in here today or to sit in, because it was that domino, had it fallen, I think would have taken down the rest of what I believe is one of the finest urban squares in America. I was reminded in 2008 when Brian Williams set up shop to cover the National Convention here. And one of the things is he kind of looked around at one moment and he says, if you don't like this city, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. And it was really because of this incredible, incredible history that we had preserved. We preserve, we tell our stories, we acknowledge what the people that have gone before, but we build for the future. Preservation is not just about a historic icon. It is about what it does to propel your community forward. People are hungry for things that are unique. People are hungry for things that tell stories. People are hungry for any reminder of the greatness of our past that helps us keep in mind of what we can do in the future. And so preservation is incredibly important, and not just because it provides jobs for history majors like my brother at the Historical Society, though I'm thankful for that. It touches me deeply every time I come down into this park. And I look around, and I never take this place for granted. Because we have done such a unique thing. But when we preserve, we also propel. So we preserved his Landmark Center, we preserved the St. Paul Hotel, we preserved this library, and the Ordway was born among that setting. So remind ourselves of what we can do. Think about what CSPS Hall does to anchor that corner of West 7th Street and really help just solidify the fabric of that community. And you can go around to every one of these sites and tell the story about why this is important, not just because it's part of our past, but because it's an integral part of our future. So for all of you that have preserved, all of you that have participated, all of you that have made this community what it is, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for the recognition from the Trust. Recently declared St. Paul a city of distinction, destination of distinction. That was wonderful to be recognized as such. An incredible partner in Federal Express. Just amazing that we have that. American Express. Got it. See, this is what happens when I go off script. No, Federal Express, they do nothing. No, the American Express, just an incredible partner, incredible vision. Your leadership is wonderful that we're here. So get to Facebook, go out and vote. Do what you need to do. Pick your site. It doesn't matter. Every one of these sites is worth investing in. Every one of these sites is worth preserving. Every one of these sites reminds us of our the greatness of our past and the potential of our future. Thank you for being here. And Mayor Rybeck and I have declared it officially Partners in Preservation Day in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And congratulations and thank you very much.
Now that Chris has turned 50, which he did last week, and of course I did that a long time ago, we are clearly people with a vested interest in Partners in Preservation. So we're really happy. I really love the comments Chris made, and I think it is important to to look at where we are. And I remember Megan and I were at an event here for Twin Cities Rise, and it was just this magic night in this space. But I think else is some of the days that people have come and the small pieces of information they've gotten from a book somewhere up in the stacks. And those stories are important. And you walk out the front door and you see what I could say as the mayor of Minneapolis is one of the great urban spaces in Minneapolis-St. Paul. That's not true. That is the most beautiful urban space in Minneapolis-St. Paul. And that's something coming from the mayor of Minneapolis, but it is. It's absolutely remarkable. Chris's point about stories is an important one because in each of these different places there are wonderful stories to tell. The CSPS Hall, for instance, in St. Paul happens to be the center of the Czech community in St. Paul. I didn't know until very recently it was where my family, a whole wing of my family, moved up from New Prague. My great uncle had a store right where the Glockenspiel restaurant is there now. And my father worked just down the street from there. I didn't know that story at all. I'd been in that building many, many times. I went to a reading Patricia Hampel did of Romantic Education there, one of the great historic novels of St. Paul, and was in that building and had no idea that my family had deep roots there. So it is important for us to tell these stories. And it is important as we look at that historic preservation is about saving beauty, but it's not just about making sure that we have 2 or 3 random flying buttri around the metropolitan area. It is really about saying that we need to be grounded in who we are. I'll tell one story I've told just a couple times before, but it means a lot to me about why we save buildings, not just because they are beautiful. I got a job at the Star Tribune. It was my first real job, my second, I guess, and I was walking to my first day, and I was really excited, and I came by this building. It's kind of a random-looking doorway, and I couldn't quite figure it out, but it looked incredibly familiar to me. And I didn't pay too much attention. I walked back home that day and then came back, and after a couple of years, I kept saying, I know that building. And I asked somebody what it was, because it was empty now. And they said, well, it was the emergency room of the old General Hospital. Now, when I was about 6, I think my father had a very serious heart attack. And they thought he was going to die. And I was brought down, my brother and sister and I were brought down very quickly to see him as they were giving the last rites to my father, and it was obviously a pretty emotional moment, but we walked in through that emergency room door. And so years later, a piece of my history finally was recaptured, and it came back to me. That is not a beautiful building. Never was a beautiful building, but it is deeply entrenched in who and what I became and what my family was. Think about how we're rooted in all of that. Could we really survive in another place, a brand new city built out of anywhere? Maybe it would be more efficient or effective. Maybe it would be more energy efficient. Maybe wonderful things would happen in this new city. But who are we? When you really hear that expression, if the walls could talk, that means something. We need to bring those stories to life, because if the walls could talk here, if the walls could talk in any of these great buildings, what stories would they tell? There's a building that's up for the award in Minneapolis, and it's an important one. It's a beautiful library in North Minneapolis, but there's a story in those walls. It's about a little boy. His name was Tim, and he went into that place. He was apparently a fairly quiet kid who liked sports a lot, but there was something about him that the librarian really liked, and she gave him a book. She gave him another book and another book. That guy, Tim, grew up to become the police chief of Minneapolis, Tim Dolan. And Tim Dolan, as he makes our city safer, as he fights crime, is now very much interested in the fact that that could become a place where young people could be given now new technology as they move forward. The stories we tell are who we are. The buildings we have are part of us. This is not just about a physical piece of infrastructure. Now, I've often sort of embraced that idea that St. Paul's the end of the East and Minneapolis the beginning of the West. We're different sorts of cities with different strengths and this and this. St. Paul, over time, has done a better job of preserving than Minneapolis, but we are catching up. And thankfully, we've developed, I think, a whole generation, the post-metropolitan building generation. Metropolitan building, of course, being the building that never should have been torn down in Minneapolis. But on some levels, the Metropolitan died for our sins. The Metropolitan went down, and it gave a whole new generation of people. I see Chuck Liddy sitting in the audience, and people who've been fighting these battles for years. I was thankfully raised by a mother who took us on a drive once, and she said, remember what this looks like because it's going to be gone soon. That was the Gateway District. We removed all of our history from that and built a brand new city, so shiny, and we're so terribly proud of it. We're now in our second generation of rebuilding that blank palette that we thought we could use to create a whole new city. How much further along we would have been had we kept part of that fabric. I remember going to my Uncle Henry's artificial lemon brace store in this very scary part of town. It was all dark and dank. Well, it was First Avenue North and 4th. It's the place right now where you have, you know, the chicest restaurants in the metropolitan area. History does have a future. And so I want us to revel in that as cities that have done our part. I want us also, as we do this, to recognize that when you go around Minnesota, we need to take this ethic outside of the metropolitan area. The greatest piece of physical infrastructure that tell more stories than anything else are endangered in this generation. We are losing the historic main streets of Minnesota. So I want us to also engage in that work because we can't just walk into beautiful parks or in other places like that. We have to go be missionaries for work that is really about who we are. So what we want you to do is something pretty simple. We want you to vote. We want you who are involved in these organizations to use them as community organizing so that we have an infrastructure of support. So it's not just about this wonderful gift, thank you so much for it, but it's more about creating that infrastructure so that we can never again see not only the metropolitan buildings torn down, but the other pieces of our fabric. Thank you all for the great work you're doing. I can't wait to vote many times, early and often. Thank you.
Right. This is really a happy day for us at American Express and the National Trust for Historic Preservation as we officially open the polls for voting. And as our first act, we would like to invite the mayors to come back to the podium and cast the first votes. And we're not going to look over their shoulders. We're not going to see who they vote for, but we're going to let them. Yeah. A lot of pressure. All right. Good? Are we good?
I got a faulty. I got a Minneapolis iPad.
Uh-oh.
It's worked. I think. There we go.
Okay, good. Terrific. Thank you very much to both mayors. And thank you to all of our advisory committee members who are here, community leaders, all of you who represent the 25 historic sites, and local preservationists for joining us. Be sure to go to Facebook, like Partners in Preservation, register to vote, and start voting today. Vote early, vote often. Thank you, and good luck.